14 negative sentences in past perfect continuous tense. Your son hadn't been coming to school lately. I hadn't been writing poems for the last 2 years. My mom hadn't been feeling well lately. We hadn't been expecting your call. We hadn't been speaking for 3 weeks, so I missed her. I hadn't been keeping any secrets from her. He hadn't been eating much lately. I hadn't been taking a shower for a week. I left work early because I hadn't been feeling well. The workers hadn't been working in the garden when we came home. I hadn't been drinking alcohol for 5 years. He hadn't been doing anything in his room all day. My father hadn't been smoking for the last 5 years. She hadn't been making a lot of progress lately. I hadn't been running away from anybody. She hadn't been cleaning the house since last month. I hadn't been sleeping in a long time. My mother hadn't been losing any weight. Sarah hadn't been neglecting her children. I hadn't been reading the papers lately. Her husband hadn't been providing for her. I hadn't been training very hard for the competition. She hadn't been displaying any signs of stress. I hadn't been using my computer for 2 weeks. My father hadn't been swimming since the age of 15. She hadn't been considering my proposal. I hadn't been writing about anything lately. She hadn't been living with me for the last 6 months. I hadn't been looking for a job since 2018. We hadn't been receiving the packages they sent us. I hadn't been watching TV for a week. We hadn't been taking instructions from him. I hadn't been dating with her then. I hadn't been working out for a long time. She hadn't been working for our company. I hadn't been trying to get rid of you. My father hadn't been smoking for the last 6 months. I hadn't been traveling a lot lately. Tom hadn't been saving any money. My wife hadn't been teaching English for quite a while.